Hello and welcome to this week's devlog for my procedurally generated voxel-based RPG game. And this week is the big one. So big. Because I promised releases of this game by the end of last year, and now, finally, here it is. It's been a long road and the game is frankly nowhere near done, but you can follow this link and you'll be able to download a copy of it. There is, however, a short briefing about what to expect from this alpha at the end of this video, so maybe stick around if you want to. I started this week where I left off, working on GitHub Actions. I needed to get stable builds of the game being built in the cloud and then distributed in some way that could be of use to the general public. At the end of last week, I had GitHub building dependencies for the engine for both Windows and Linux. So really, I just needed to make it so that the engine built using those dependencies. That can't be too complicated, right? Well, honestly, this involved a lot of waiting. It pretty much ended up just being a process of trial and error in the end. I try something, change something, or build something, wait 10 minutes, and then try again until I eventually got through. Like progressively banging your head against a wall until you made it to the other side, eventually the build started to succeed. Here she comes, here she comes. So the first build of the engine that actually archived an exe file has completed. You can see it. It failed a few times first. What I have now got is a zip file, which seems like it contains all the appropriate stuff in it. AVEngine windows.zip.zip. So if the engine opens up now and shows me a black screen, then that means I've managed to build it completely from the cloud. Oh. Okay. It did work! Oh, that's a surprise. So there was actually nothing wrong with Direct3D all along. Basically, it was a problem relating to some AMD args things, specifically that related to the DirectX render system. So now with a working engine, I basically just had to build the game. So the reason that I have to build the games themselves is because I wrote this asset pipeline system that really there to help speed up a lot of the game distribution process. But then that does of course mean that you have to do a step to build the resources before you can actually run the game. It runs using a Docker container, and this is how I can make it properly cross-platform and portable, because things like the Blender executable itself run from within inside the container. And if you know anything about Docker, then this means that I would in theory have to run some sort of container image in order to make it work. So that's yet another thing I had to do in order to build this project. Actually, to speed things up, I just built the container inline for the moment, rather than pulling it pre-built from somewhere else. Although this was a workaround, and it was gross. But then, nice, build source folder. In theory, if I run this now, yes! It works! I'm gonna lie down. I'm so happy. Ow! Oh, that actually hurt. What I needed to do now was combine the pre-built engine with the now recently built assets for the game into one package, because that would give you the complete. This wasn't actually that difficult. For Windows, all I had to do was download the two, unzip both, and stick all the files into the same directory together, and then zip that new directory back up. In the meantime then, I also worked on getting GitHub to build the Docker image for the asset pipeline system. You know, that bit that I had previously just badgered in. Is that even a word? And to be honest, this caused me quite a bit of trouble. No! No! Why is the name invalid? Give me a better description than that. You silly dick. So the problem was that it would crash as it tried to push the built container, the literal final place it could have failed. It was honestly pretty annoying to try and figure that out, but gradually I got there. And then after a few hours work... Oh! It worked! So do I have a package? Oh, I do. Hey! There he is. It's beautiful. I then worked on some actual stabilization. The first was this problem with linking shared libraries on Windows. Turns out I had missed a flag in the build and cost myself maybe 2 hours. The second was the found places pop-up, which essentially just ended up getting disabled because I didn't want to look at it. The next was that I needed something for the player to name the save file, so I added this little input box window in order to give the user a place to put their name. I also did some checks and tested it a bit, so I mainly use regex, and I'm really just checking that the player didn't provide a name that had like new line characters in it or anything like that. That would be stupid. So I've just been going at this building thing for ages. It's currently about 2 a.m. in the morning, and I've managed to get Linux build, Windows build working. If I download this Windows, and I've got all my DLLs, all the various files, and I've got my exe file here somewhere. There it is. If I was on a Windows computer right now, I'd literally just run that and the game would start up. Do you know what? In fact, why aren't I on a Windows computer? I don't know how seamless I'm going to be able to make that be. I've even got the hash in the file name. How organized is that? So here's my build, completely built entirely using GitHub. Dependencies, engine, game itself, all completely distributed and packaged into this single directory that I can download. I don't care. Sorry, I can't really make a very loud noise because it's so late, so here's some dramatic editing. Like, I'm genuinely so happy about that. This has been a very, very long time coming. It took so many years. It literally took 1 year to get to this point. Oh, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. First Goblin death from the GitHub builds. Majestic. I've also added this screenshot mode to the developer profiles. This is really for me, hopefully to help me make better thumbnails, but we'll have to see about that, won't we? And I also added this quit to desktop button, which someone on the Discord community suggested after playing the game. So with all that said, finally, you can go and play the first alpha by following the link below. And I'd just like to say and preface this with this very important piece of information. For me, this is a learning experience. This project will not just be the one game, it will be a series of games I plan to make in preparation for my magnum opus, the final game. I really do want to stress that this game is not done yet. I promised to release something, and I'm releasing what I feel is still quite an unfinished and messy project. But I'm doing this because I want you all to see what the process is. The game doesn't even have a name yet because it's still in that process. At this stage, I'd be pleased if the game even starts up on the average computer and can be played, let alone enjoyed, because it's still in that process. But slowly I do believe it will grow, and I want you all to be able to see the growth in a tangible way. Right now I'd suggest you consider this game as more of a curiosity, and if you boot it up, just remember that there's still stuff to do. So let me give you the tour of the project so far. Starting it up, you get this main menu screen. It's still a bit of a work in progress. If you go through, create a save, give your character a name, and then you have the option to just begin the exploration. Depending on your computer, the world gen procedure might be slow, and also don't panic if it says it's not responding. This will be addressed later on. When you arrive in the world, click around to move your character, and then use WASD to move the camera. You can click on the goblins to target them and begin the combat, or just let them come to you. You can use the numbers on your keyboard to trigger combat moves, or you can just click the buttons at the top. The goal of the game is to discover things such as settlements or new places. You can visit places for extra rewards and leave those places by walking out of them. Eventually you'll find the gateway and have the option to end the exploration. And just really keep exploring to level up. That's the loop of the game so far. Well, that was a bit of an info dump, wasn't it? I want to improve at least one small thing in my process each week, so I've decided that in order to keep myself accountable for that, I'm gonna tell you all each week, each video, the thing that I've improved this week. This week the main thing I did was I set up this fast SSD scratch disk for when I edit videos. Basically when editing in Final Cut Pro, it needs to write its temporary files to somewhere, and they can get really, really big, especially when dealing with lots of footage like what I'm doing. I used to just save it up on my computer's SSD, and when that became full, it would cause all sorts of errors, and I would end up having to just spend time copying files over or to somewhere else. This saved me about 5 to 10 minutes of panicking about where I should save files, and also in theory improved the lifespan of my computer. And I've also started time tracking some of the different parts of the video editing process, so I know which bits are taking the most time and also what can be improved. It took me this long to make this single video, and actually the less time I can spend on the video production process, the more time I can spend on actual game development. So in theory I just need to work smarter, not harder. But that's quite difficult to do. So really the final thing I have to say is thank you for sticking around. I've been working on this project for over 7 years now, but I've only really existed on this channel for about 1 year. So it's been a really fantastic experience. I've really enjoyed working full time on this, and I'm just looking forward to the future, really. I've learned so much, and to me that's just so important. So sit tight and let's see where we go from here. Thanks. So, one for old times.